Hare Krishna. So we're going to have, go ahead. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. We're going to have a little shorter than usual Bhagavatam class. And then we're going to read some Jayananda pastimes that you have not heard yet, I don't think. You read from the Kalakanta, but this is something different. These are my own experiences. With the great saint Jayananda. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Balaba Kirivanadari Gopijana Balaba Kirivanadari Jasoda Nandana Vajjana Ranjana Jasoda Nandana Vajjana Ranjana Jamunati Ravanatari Jamunati Ravanatari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Balaba Girivanadari Jasoda Nandana Vajjana Ranjana Jamunati Ravanatari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Balaba Girivanadari Jasoda Nandana Vajjana Ranjana Jamunati Ravanatari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Hey! Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Boom! Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Boom! Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari, Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribhajakacharya Siddhashish with His divine grace abide Children Bhakti Vedanta Sai Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki, ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Jagaguru Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Guru Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Prem Shri Guho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasari Go Bhakta Vrinda ki, Say Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Gita Govardhan ki, Vrindavan Dham ki, Mathura Dham ki, Dwarka Dham ki, Navadip Dham ki, Jagannathpuri Dham ki, Jamuna Maya ki, Ganga Maya ki, Tulsi Maharani ki, Bhakti Devi ki, Sambhira Bhakta Vinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Say Radha Giridhari ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtana Jaga ki, Gopremanande. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to divine Lord Srita Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Krishna Sadamo Bhagate Dhammaganadi Bisaha Kalana Sadasham Mesha Purana Konadodita Narayana Skrichandaram Chaivam Narotama Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat. The Bhagavatam is written as the sun, is arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied with knowledge, religion, etc. Persons who have lost their vision to the dense darkness of the age of Kali should get light out of this Purana. Before beginning our study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should first offer respects to the personality of God in Narayan, the Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, the goddess of living Mother Saraswati, the author Srila Vyasadeva, and my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada. Ajata Paksha Iva Mataram Khaga stanyam yata vatsatara Shrud artha priyam priyeva vyusitam vishana mano aravindaksha didrikshate tvam ajatapaksha iva mataram khaga stanyam yatavat sat tada shudartha priyam priyeva vyusitam vishana mano vindaksha dridrikshate tvam ajatapaksha iva mataram khaga stanyam yata vatsatara shudartaha priyam priyeva vishutam vishana mano ravindaksha didrikshate tvam ajatapaksha iva mataram khaga stanyam yata vatsaratara shudartaha priyam priyeva vyusitam vishana mano ravindaksha dridikshate tvam ajatapaksha iva mataram khaga stanyam yata vatsara taratisha priyam priyeva vishitam vishana mano ravindaksha didikshate tvam ajatapaksham iva mataram khaga stanyam yata vatsara Krishna mano virdikdaksha dikshane ajatapaksha iva mataram khaga stanyam yata vatsatara Krishna priyam priyeva vishutam vishana mano ravindakshana didikshate ajatapaksha who have not yet grown wings iva like mataram the mother khaga small birds stanyam the milk from the udder yata just as vatsatara the young calves shudarta distressed by hunger priyam the beloved or husband priya the wife or lover iva like vyushitam who is away from home vishana morose mana my mind aravindaksha O lotus-eyed one didrikshate wants to see tvam you O lotus-eyed Lord, as baby birds that have not yet developed their wings always look for their mother to return and feed them, as small calves tied with ropes await anxiously the time of milking, when they will be allowed to drink the milk of their mothers. Or as a morose wife whose husband is away from home, always longs for him to return and satisfy her in all respects, I always yearned for the opportunity to render direct service unto you. Also you say, O lotus-eyed Lord, as baby birds that have not yet developed their wings always look for their mother to return and feed them. As small calves tied with ropes await anxiously the time of milking, when they will be allowed to drink the milk of their mothers. Or as a morose wife whose husband is away from home always longs for him to return and satisfy her in all respects, I always yearn for the opportunity to render direct service unto you. A pure devotee always yearns to associate personally with the Lord and render service unto him. The examples given in this regard are most appropriate. A small baby, hey, what's going on there? A small baby bird is practically never satisfied, except when the mother bird comes to feed it. A small calf is not satisfied unless allowed to suck the milk from the mother's udder. And a chaste devoted wife, whose husband is away from home, is never satisfied until she has the association of her beloved husband. Om Gena Tamrandasya Yana Gena Salakaya Jakshushun Militan Gena Tazare Shri Gurave Namaha. So these three examples, the baby birds, they're in the nest, chirping for the mother to return. You've got the calves eagerly waiting their mothers. Or you've got the husband, the wife, who's feeling lonely, anxious, waiting for the husband to return. These are all very intense emotions. As a sidelight, I happen to remember this morning. When Prabhupada was touring the Detroit temple, I'm saying new temple, but it's been there for so many years now. But as he was touring it with the owner, the owner pointed out that there were different Scandinavian symbols of auspiciousness carved in certain places. Don't they call those runes? Like those are usually they're carvings for auspiciousness or even for tantric witchcraft, different things, but they're different. They invoke things. So one of the main beams in the temple, in the building on the outside, it was carved. It was a mother pelican pecking her breast. Why? The man pointed this out to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada asked, why? And the man said, because if the baby pelicans are starving, there's no food, the mother will peck her own breast and feed the flesh to the baby. And Prabhupada said that a mother's love is the closest representative we have to pure devotional service. It's still material, but a good mother, they just want to see the baby happy. They just want these children happy. Whatever I remember my mother would always take us to the beach and with a picnic lunch. And inevitably, some kid would knock his sandwich into the sand. It was guaranteed. After some time, my mother started making extra sandwiches. But I remember her giving her, whatever. Here, take mine, So that's a shadow reflection of the selfless love, pure devotional service. But what I was thinking is these are very intense emotions. If you think about a craving, hunger, it eclipses all other emotions. If you're super hungry, you're not thinking about anything else. You're thinking, I got to get something to eat and I got to get it now. So there's a And nothing else will satisfy. You know, I can have a, real hunger. Prabhupada said young men are always hungry. So suppose you haven't eaten for an hour. No. There was a devotee, his name was Everett, his nickname was Ever Eat. I asked him one time, he was eating all the time. He was a big guy too, so he kind of earned it. Prabhupada said, if you work like a bird, you should eat like a bird. If you work like a horse, you can eat like a horse. So he was big size. And I asked him, I said, is there anywhere that you can't eat? Because he was eating he'd have a snack before Mangalarti, take a snack after Mangalarti. It was like. So I snacked before I went to bed, snack when he woke up. So I asked him, I said, is there anywhere you can't eat? He said, nope. I said, what about the shower? Think about it. What could you eat in the shower? Apple. Exactly. Well, what do you know about that? That's exactly what Everett said. He said, an apple. And I was like, Brahminical cleanliness aside, you could eat an apple in the shower. It might become a little crisper, it's kind of tasty right there, But it meant that, I don't know, I don't want to, impinge on, or juxtaposing on your reputation, but this guy had thought about it. He'd actually thought about what he could eat in the shower, because he didn't wait. He came right back with an answer, So, that was Everett, Ever Eat. But the point is that it's an intense emotion. And nothing else will satisfy it. And it gives us a flavor. The point of this verse is to give us an indication of what does it actually mean, pure devotional service, love for Krishna. And there's a word that starts with an L, and other than Dravida Prabhu, which is the price for getting bhakti, for getting Krishna's lotus feet. He's praying here, Vritasura is praying to get the mercy of Krishna, the darshan of Krishna, to get out of this miserable asura body that he's got, this huge hulk, and just go back to Godhead. He wants that. He's had enough. He's done. So what is that emotion that Rupa Goswami and our other Goswamis say, and Prabhupada quotes, is the necessity, the only necessity for getting Krishna's lotus feet? What is it, Ram? Lolyam. And what does that mean? It means intense hankering or greed. So it's the same, you can think about those you see little baby birds, they're like chirp, chirp, chirp. That's all they're waiting for. When the mother comes, they're all got their mouths open, And I've seen the baby calves. I remember being in New Vrindavan. Those who say that the animals don't have souls. Prabhupada's on a darshan, and this man's arguing that animals don't have souls because they don't understand metaphysics. That's what makes them different from animals. Prabhupada says, so you can kill a child? Child isn't thinking about metaphysics. They're thinking about they want to play all day long, and what are they going to eat? So you can cook up the child because the child doesn't understand. What kind of logic is that? Someone who's, I don't know what the proper, mentally challenged, what do you say nowadays, A bit slow, a couple prep short of an offering. You can just cook them up because they're not thinking about what kind of logic is that? So, and as far as them not having emotions, I remember being in New Vrindavan and we had those big brown Swiss. You ever seen a brown Swiss cow? They are a big animal. They're standing, they're up to your, well, I don't know, a bull is probably almost up to your, certainly higher than your shoulder, almost up to your head. At the back, they're a big animal. And so I remember seeing the calves were tethered at the top of the hill, and the barn was here. So the calves were out in their little corral, little whatever you call it, pasture area. And there was the barn. And the cowherd men in Vrindavan, the New Vrindavan cowherd, were bringing the cows, these big brown Swiss, up the hill. And when the mothers saw their babies, they bolted. The cowherd men couldn't hold them. They just bolted. They wanted, and the babies were all, banging on the gate. They wanted, it was a genuine affection. It was moving. There's no question about it. And each mother knew its calf. Each calf knew its mother. So this idea that they don't feel or sent into, there's no reason, it's rubbish. It's a blind rationale. So, but the point I did a little word search on greed and craving. Hunger, it says strong desire and craving. It actually eclipses all other emotions. So, when we say, what is the time? When we say, this thing is actually at the wrong angle. Let's do a little craftsmanship here. All righty. The necessity, the mother of invention. When it says that lolium or greed or intense hankering is the only price. When you say something is this is the only way, only thing you need. You can take that as two ways. Only means like easy. It's only 2 cents. It's easy. So, you don't, Robert always talks about nose-pressing yogis. You don't have to be a nose-pressing yogi. You don't have to be a bookworm, although we like to study. The Brahma Sampradaya is particularly known for its erudition, scholarship. But nothing else is, we have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu meeting the Brahmin who was reading the Gita upside down because his spiritual master told him, read Bhagavad Gita. You know the story, and yet he was crying. Why are you crying? Because he was being mocked? Is that why he was crying? The Brahmin, illiterate Brahmin, was crying because he was being mocked? Hey, Brahmin, so how is your Gita reading going? Anyone know why he was crying? Other than, okay, you're out of the game for now, you're out of the game for now. Amoga, and then you'll be out of the game. Yeah, he was thinking how the supreme, all-powerful personality of God has become the charioteer of his devotee. And he was just how wonderful Krishna is and how kind, and he was shedding tears. So what did Mahaprabhu say? You are the real knower of Bhagavad Gita, and embraced him. So on one hand, we can take it, lolium, that intense desire is the only thing. That's all that's required. You don't have to have you don't have to be, like Krishna says, patram pushpam palam toyam. Prabhupada says, who can't get a leaf or flower or fruit, piece of water? I said, a little bit of water. Who can't get that, And if it's offered with devotion, then you purchase Krishna. There's that story. I don't know if it's a village lore or if it's actually somewhere in Shastra. I'll have to ask someone who will know. I'll have to ask Giriraj Maharaj or somebody. I could ask Shiva Ramash too. But there was, and they do it in a lot of places. When it's a ceremony, and you want to purchase someone. They sit on a scale, and you weigh them. Even there's that guy who's I can't remember the name of the religious sect he's a member of. But they weigh him. And different, and you put so much gold on this side or so much whatever, and So they were trying to weigh Krishna. Krishna was sitting on one side of the scale, and the gopis were putting so many things on their scale. Nothing outweighed Krishna after all. Like when Mother Yasoda looked in his mouth and saw all the universes, had you eaten dirt, and all the dirt of creation, all the planets were inside his mouth. So nothing could weigh more than Krishna. But one of the gopis, what did they decide to do? Took everything off the scale, and what did they put? You're out of the game, you're out of the game, you're out of the game. Control your senses, sadhus. I'm just joking. Utsaha, enthusiasm. They put a tulsi leaf. Was it Radharani? Put a tulsi leaf. So we don't know. You could find out, is that folklore, or is it somewhere in Shastra or the Goswami writings? So that one tulsi leaf offered in devotion purchased Krishna, outweighed more than Krishna. So it should be encouragement. We don't have to be anything special. We just have to purely and solely, exclusively focused love Krishna, want Krishna. Let me become Krishna's devotee. Let me get out of all this nonsense. Okay, so that's one definition of only. You know, today, only at this price, special offering. But there's another way we can take that word only. That's all. That only means the only thing. When I say it's the only thing, okay, it only takes one thing. But only can mean, hey, the only way you're going to be able to pay for this is with $1 million. So only means there's no alternative. You can't flatter Krishna. You can't, perform some big jaga. You can't, he's not impressed by your sutras. Are you chanting just, we have the, what is it? We have the wives of the Brahmins and we have the Brahmins, in Krishna Leela. So the only thing that attracts Krishna, nothing else is going to do it. But that intense desire, let me become Krishna's devotee. So we'll get to, but I wanted to say a few more things. It describes here how, well, what is the last line of the verse? I'll have to flip back here. Because it's significant, as everything in the Bhagavatam is. So, Vichasura is saying, I always yearn for the opportunity to render direct service unto you. So, seeing Krishna, people want to see God. Can you show me God? I want to see God. We want to have the darshan. The Christians had the idea of going to heaven. But what do they actually do there? You get these Christian tracts. Yeah, harp music. Well, that'll wear on you. It's like music, after a while. In an elevator music, you only take so much, So, although I imagine it's celestial sublime, but what was I going to... you get those Christian tracts. And what does heaven look like? It looks like somebody's backyard barbecue. They're all hanging around. Somebody's grilling up the burgers. When I get to heaven, going to see them chops and steaks. When I get to heaven, going to see them pearly gates, So that it's just completely mundane. It's like being in the Yellowstone. You ever been to Yellowstone? Not Yellowstone, Yosemite Valley. Gunagraj Maharaj used to go there in the summertime and chant. We're way off the track, but it's okay. The Atma Rama verse that even the deer, the dull animals, by that meaning, not very sophisticated, they're all attracted to Krishna. Everyone's attracted to Krishna, from the great rishis to even the simple animals. It happened several times. We would set up, there was a meadow, there's a lodge with a gift store right next to it, of course. And then there was this big meadow, and then you've got the beautiful, it's quite a beautiful scene. And the Merced River's flowing through there. And we would be chanting. Gunagraj Maharaj always talks about the mellow hour, which is around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. It's not too cold. The sun hasn't set yet, but people have kind of burned out on everything else. So, what is this? This looks good. So, but at the edge of that big meadow, deer would come, rabbits, no bears. We didn't see any bears, but we did see different animals. They would kind of gather at the edge, especially the deer. They would gather at the edge of the meadow. Because deer, like the hunter attracts with a flute, evidently deer are attracted to music. And they would come and they'd cock their heads and listen to the kirtan. It was a very blissful scene. So how did we get off on that? So they want to have, their idea of heaven is a natural, and they want, especially, they're really into it if you're a Mormon. You got everybody's sealed. They do those big sealing ceremony, like seal to bind together. They got granny there. They got their kids there. They got their mom and dad there. Everybody's all sealed and bound, and the whole family's there. They're just milling around with a Diet Coke and barbecuing the burgers and talking prajalpa. Sometimes in those paintings they've got Jesus with a Diet Coke walking around. And God is like remote from the whole scene. But here it's describing to see God means what? Seeing should be, to be in the presence of God should be synonymous with another word that begins with S, and not Dravida, not Amoga, and not Ramapati. We need a fresh participant. Serving. That's what he wants to serve Krishna. He doesn't want to, okay, God, you're there like catcher in the rye. You're there making sure everything, you catch anything that goes wrong. When he gets close to the cliff, you're there to catch him. You're sustaining the laws of physics. But other than that, I really don't want to have much to do with you. And there's a whole lot of reasons. There's the sense of creatureliness. You ever been to Lincoln Memorial? Those Christian tracks always remind me of Lincoln. You should go in Washington, D.C., Lincoln Memorial. You walk up the big, it's meant to be. It's one of the, what do they call the temple of democracy. It's meant to be impressive. You walk up those big steps, and then you get to the top of the thing, and then the big, it's like the, what is it called? The Pantheon? What is that thing that in top of the Acropolis in Greece? Parthenon. It's the Parthenon. And then there's giant Lincoln sitting on this throne. I mean, it's you feel small, and it's meant to be intimidating. It's meant to be inspire awe, and people automatically, kids are all skipping and making noise. And they get up to the top of the stairs. They're quiet. So that's the sense of creatureliness, that God is all-powerful. Hey, and if you tick him off, off you go into the lake of fire, so you really don't want to. You're on your best behavior. So, but the question of loving service, intimate, reciprocal relationship, that's not even on the map. But here we find in Vaishnava, pure devotional service, this intense longing that let me serve Krishna. And if you think about it, that's what I wanted. I knew there was one last thing I wanted to read. I did a little word search in the dictionary. Here's a little compare and contrast. Because you've got all kinds of hankering. You've got the same thing. Just like we say that you've got lust is the perverted reflection of lust is what? I mean, the proper expression, the pure expression of love is prema, which is the love of the jiva for the Supreme Lord, service of the Supreme Lord. So in the similar way, there's all kinds of hankering in this. Everybody's hankering in this world. And I searched around for hankering, and a lot of times the Shastra uses the word karshita. Karshita means a harsh struggle. You're fighting against something, like Sisyphus rolling the rock up the hill. You're working hard. It's a struggle. So people are hankering. But devotees are also hankering. It's the same principle. One is therapeutically treated. So I did a little word search just for fun. Material life, karshita. Some of the for the harsh struggle. Some of the these are Prabhupada's word for word. This is not dictionary. This is looking up the word karshita and looking for different ways that Prabhupada translates it. This hard struggle and this sense of hankering that So Prabhupada describes it: be exhausted, weary, greatly bereaved, fatigued, distressed by separation. I mean, just think of it. That's our condition. If you just strip away all the romantic intoxication that's allowed, there was a guy, what is the time? There was a guy, Mr. Shackford. Mr. Shackford, my parents had a party one time, and Mr. Shackford was a lush. He liked to drink. And one time, he got so drunk, he fell off the balcony of my parents' house into the rose garden. Yeah. He was kind of a chubby guy, so he was well padded, And because he was intoxicated, you know, he's all scratched and bent up, you know. But when he sobered up the next day, how did Mr. Shackford feel? Well, I don't think he felt embarrassed. In those days, drinking was cool. But physically, no, yours was a good guess. But how did, you ever get banged up and, oh, well, it wasn't so bad. And then the next morning when you wake up, oh, wow, man. Parts of your body you never knew you had all of a sudden are aching. So this harsh struggle, because we're intoxicated, we don't really focus on it. 90% of the time is struggling and hankering and lamenting. But all we remember, memory is a strong thing. Memory is completely fallible. Police, the FBI, any kind of, Scotland Yard, they never make a decision on witnesses. Memory, because it doesn't mean it. Memory fades and morphs. If you tell yourself something is true enough times, it'll become stuck in your mind as a memory, as an actual true. There's false memories. Just by repeating, and all of it, after a while, that becomes your story. So the point I'm trying to make is that 90% is this harsh struggle. But what we remember is the few times, like, who is it? Not Jarasandha. Is it Jarasandha was defeated 18 times? Yeah, 18 times. And there's always a reason why. Well, he gets back. Is he the one? Prabhupada says, he had to walk back. All of the soldiers and his own horse was killed. And Prabhupada says, Prabhupada's subtle humor, unprecedented in the annals of military history. And he got back up and tried it again. So this is our condition. Actually, we're just beating our head against the wall, but every now and then you get a little drop of water, you get a little, in the desert, you get a little relief. You go, oh, not so bad. We're going to read about Jayananda some other time, because I don't want to keep you guys, and I've got to go. There's an example in Shastra. A man is, or it could be a woman, let's say a person, to be gender-free. A person is strolling in the, you see people running through the fields of flowers. I did this one time. It's long before I was a devotee. Well, I don't want to get too personal. But the point is that we were running to a beach where there were nice waves, and there was a beautiful field of flowers. So we've been in this van, it was South Mexico. We were in this van for so long, we just wanted to get, so we just ran for the beach. And the waves were going to be great, and the water was warm, and it was a beautiful day. As we were running through that field, when we got into the middle of the field, what did we encounter? One of the worst small cactus and stickers and we were barefoot, because we were heading for the beach. And all of a sudden, we're in the middle of this thing, and any way you walked, it was a good 50 yards to get out of this thing. And any way you walked, it was all stickers, and we're barefoot. So from that exhilaration of, oh, Yahoo! It was also, different colorful expressions of frustration. So that's our real experience in life. I'm sorry, folks. But it's covered by that little bit of exhilaration when you finally get what you want after striking out 9 times. The 10th time you get, not so. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. So someone's running through a field happily, and all of a sudden, they fall in an empty well, a dry well, and nothing's broken or bruised. Oh, so as they're falling, that's how it goes. So they're falling, and it's dark, and they're just grabbing. You can imagine they're grabbing. Oh, jeez, I'm safe. I didn't hit the bottom. Like, so far, so good. The saying, so far, so good. The counter to that is that's what the man said who fell off the roof. So far, so good, before he hit the ground. So it's not the going down that's the problem. It's hitting the ground that's the problem. All right, so this guy didn't hit the ground. He's holding on to the sides of the well. Whew. But then as his eyes adjust, he looks down, and there's a giant king cobra. You ever seen those things? Man, that is a scary animal. It's a giant king cobra saying, come on, come down to Papa, come on down. Whoa, can't go down. He looks up. What's over the top? There's a giant tiger looking down saying, come on up, come on up. Can't go down, can't go up. Then he looks at the root. What he's grabbed onto are two roots coming through the side of the abandoned well. And he sees that there's a black rat and a white rat. And they're gnawing on the roots their way through. So what is his position? He can't go up, he can't go down, and he can't stay where he is much longer. That's our condition. All of a sudden he feels something's dripping on his head. And he looks up, and there's a tree with a branch over it over the well. And there's a little bit of honey drop. Drip, drip. So he cocks his mouth back. So you get a little bit of honey, thinks, hey, not so bad. The analogy from the Acharyas is that the well, of course, is the well of material life. And we've got Kala, often represent the serpent, the life heirs. It's often represented by a serpent. And they're going, they're fading. Chandravega, there's a whole story in the Bhagavatam. And if you look up, that tiger, that's the three modes of material nature. Durga's riding on a tiger, and it's devouring the living entity. We got a little bit of a, stationary position. But time and tide wait for no one. The black and the white rat, daytime and nighttime, are gnawing through. Time is stealing away our existence. But we get a little drop of honey and we think, not so bad. So that is our condition. And it's defined in Shastra, that's Karshita. And it's defined exhausted, weary, greatly bereaved, fatigued, distressed by separation. That's our condition. Now, people, because I've got these idiots that live next to me, and they drink beer and watch sports and play country music songs. Country music, it's an oxymoron, like military intelligence or marital bliss, said the sannyasi. Country music. Think about it, you'll get it. So, I'm just a Sudra, whatever. It's a Sudra's lament. That's what it is. Looking for love in all the wrong places, so somebody done somebody wrong song. And they're just lamenting like that. That's what they're actually doing. So one of the guys, because their door's wide open and I'm trying to work in my office, you can't help but hear him. One of the guys, there was a song about, all this suffering, I'm going to find my way home. And if you think about it, there's so many songs. Home, found my way home, I'm on my way home. I'm just longing for home. I'm traveling. When will I be home? So it's a very strong, it tugs on the threads of the heart. My homeland. Home, home. Is it a home, home on the range? Everyone's looking for a home. So there was some song about home. Someday I'll be able to go home. But that same hankering, that lolium, when it becomes hankering to go back to Godhead, to go back to Krishna, to be engaged in Krishna's service, that hankering is sublime and delivers the living entity. So that's what our apparent Asura, Brittasura, that he has understood the secret. He's feeling it. That let me just, all these other hankerings, forget it. Okay. And we like anxiety. That's just as there's lust and there's prema, there's hankering after material things, and there's loliums, there's the compare and contrast, the opposite. There's material anxiety, and there's spiritual anxiety. Actually, the devotees, Prabhupada said, I was sitting peacefully in Vrindavan. He didn't need to come to the West. He was living in, Prabhupada said Radha Damodar temple, we'll end here, but Radha Damodar temple is the center of the spiritual world. Prabhupada had his room in the Jiva Goswami's temple with Radha Damodar in Sevakunj. Prabhupada said, you cannot understand what I was experiencing. Prabhupada said, living in Vrindavan. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was walking on that, now it's called Bhaktisiddhanta Marg. He was walking on that road in Mayapur, and they went past a public, urinal or whatever you want to call it, public outhouse. Everybody covered their nose. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, you cannot smell the Vaikuntha breezes of Mayapur. So who knows what these great acharyas are experiencing. Prabhupada's living in Vrindavan, and he accepted so much anxiety. There's the book distributor. What is the guy? The German guy? Starts with an M. Manidar. Kids, don't try this at home. Manidar, being German, sometimes he would go to a park, and someone would be sitting in the park reading a newspaper. Big lump of newspaper. Everybody loves newspaper. He would take out a lighter, sit down on the bench next to the person, and light the newspaper on fire. Oh my God. And the person would obviously be in complete shock. And he would look at them and say, I could not stand seeing you in such anxiety. Read this. Boom. And give him a first canto Bhagavatam. That was his book distribution style. He used to flag down cars on the Autobahn going 120 miles an hour. And people were so shocked, they thought he was in distress. He'd flag them down. They'd slam on the brakes. They'd roll down the window. He'd give them a Bhagavatam. They would buy it because he was so, that conviction. He was so convinced that they just bought it. Preetu said there were either two things going on. They thought either this man is completely convinced and hitting on something that is sublime, and I'll take the book, or he's completely crazy and I don't know what he's going to do, so I better just take the book. Either way, it worked, So, to end, the point I'm trying to make is that anxiety for Krishna. We don't want to just, I'm seeing God and I'm, vibrating and I'm making the sun and moon rise. Forget all that. We want to be an anxiety for Krishna. We want to, seeing Krishna means serving Krishna. And we want to be an anxiety, how to increase our service for Krishna. That is the sweet taste of Lolyam. Okay, we can end there. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. And we'll read about, because it's good stuff, we'll read about Jayananda next Sunday.